Hello, everyone. Welcome. It is so very good to see you as we're getting this sorted out here. It is good to see you. Hello, hello, hello. Very glad to see you here. We've got a lot of people who registered for this, and I was just trying to check to see, make sure we got everybody, get everybody the link. Hello, Mary. We got people already burning it up saying hello. Hello there, Sean. Is it Sean? Very good. And Mary Adams, it's very good to see you. Hold on one second. Something changed. And I do not like. There we go. Hold on one second, guys. Sorry about that. Nope, that's not what I want. Let's try that. Oh, I know what changed. I know what changed. Sorry about this, guys. This is going to take me just a hot second because this is going to drive me bananas. The color changed and I did not authorize that. There we go. Okay, very good. So it is good to see you all. Thank you guys for sticking around for the few extra minutes. I know we were just getting a slow start here. Let's see, and we've got a few people selling one-to-one. There we go. That's what I was trying to do. Save. There we go. All right. So now we got Mary Adams. Um, you are in Tennessee and in real estate. Very good. I've got some people who live in the Nashville area. I got Javier saying hola or hala, depending on how you want to say that. Sandia is saying hello. And let's see, we've got a few other folks here. Please let me know what kind of work that you're into as well, just so I can make this relevant for you. We got Javier, Sacramento County, covered California, certified insurance agent. Excellent, very good. And let's see, Gasson, good to see you again. My name is Gasson. So glad to have you again in this meeting. Oh, very good. Yeah, good to see you, Gasson. Is it? Nope. Mary, that was just me. That was just me being stupid and slow. But I think I've got it all figured out now. All right. So if you are joining, see a bunch of you are joining from YouTube. Very good. If you are, please let me know where you're from and what line of work that you're in, because we are here to discuss this topic right here. Why are you not? There we go. Man, everything is working against me today. Selling without fear and selling with and feeling in selling without that icky feeling where you're like, ugh, here we go. Here we got this gross feeling that I'm getting ready to ask for money. And I know if you have that not a great relationship with money, and this is just something that I've had to work through. So I just want to let you know that if you feel that like, oh my gosh, I have to ask them for money and you kind of want to throw up in your mouth feeling when you get to that part of the selling conversation, I just want to encourage you, you can absolutely get past that. The hard part about that is you have to just do it. You have to kind of work through that on your own. And I will tell you that if you are that kind of person where you feel like, man, I just hate for that part where I have to ask people for money, that is because of your bad relationship with money and your thoughts around money, not theirs. Now, if they have a bad relationship with money and they're kind of giving off some weird vibes, that's not your issue, right? Yes, you can help them feel better about it, but it's really not their it's not your issue, right? That's their relationship with money really doesn't have anything to do with you. And I'm just saying, like, when you're in the selling conversation and you're feeling kind of gross or icky or you're feeling salesy or you don't want to ask for the sale because you're feeling like, no, that's just, I don't want to be that guy, I don't want to be that gal, you need to set that stuff aside, because that is about a relationship with money, and that's probably holding your sales back more than any other thing. So just letting you know, you can absolutely get past that. That is something I had to work through. So yeah, so I'm just want to encourage you there, Mary. I am not frozen up on my end, so hopefully um, you're sorted out on yours on your end. Emily Fisher, Orange. I'm assuming you're Orange County, California. Staffing sales. I actually grew up in Orange County, New York. Actually, I grew up technically in Sullivan County, New York, but I spent most of my time in Orange County. That's where my friends were, at the Orange County Mall. All right. So for those of you, again, thank you for joining me. Thank you for letting me know where you're from and what kind of work that you're in, because I'm going to try to make this a little bit more relevant to you. And let me swap my screens around here. There we go. So this is going to be about selling, and it is there. I just want to make two main differences here between selling one to one and selling one to many. The difference in the selling environment between one to one and one to many is important, and the difference is in the number of transaction decisions. Okay, so we've got John. Um, let's see, West Covina. Um, Oh, very good, John. We're glad you could join us. Mary, what I would suggest is go back out and come back in because sometimes that does seem to help. I unfortunately, I don't think anybody else is reporting that it's been frozen on their end. But sometimes that does help. But if don't worry if you're about missing anything. If you get back out, come back in. This recording, this replay will be sent to you in your email if you signed up through Eventbrite. So I just want to let you know that. All right. So selling one to one versus one to many. There are important differences. I'm not going to be talking about selling one to many. That was a session that I did a couple days ago last week. And selling one to many, it is similar in some aspects, but there are key differences in selling one to one versus one to many. And probably the biggest difference is that selling one to many is where you're often doing that from stage, or you're doing that from a webinar where you're having all these different people who have different buying decisions, right? Where selling one to one, I could be selling it in a one to one conversation that might have 5 people on the other side of the table because they're all making one buying decision. They might be making that one buying decision for their company. They may be making one buying decision for their family, right? Like if they were all going to buy, let's say that everyone in that family, let's say they're all brothers and sisters and they were making a decision to buy a timeshare, right? Or they were making a decision to buy a piece of real estate, right, for their families to enjoy, right? That would be one buying decision. Whereas if I'm making, if let's say I have 50 parcels to sell and there are 100 people in the room, right? Now those are 100 different buying decisions, except there might be a buying decision. One buying decision might be between one single person and another buying decision might be between a married couple. So that's the difference between selling one to many, right, versus selling one to one is me having a conversation where it's the number of transactions that are going to be done on the other side of the table. So that's why I just want you to understand there is a significant difference. And that's probably the main difference because when you're speaking one to many, it's a little bit, there are some things to talk about. There are some different things to do. I'm not going to be getting into that really at all because I want to focus on one to one selling. And that is that. And again, it's got its nuances, but it is more important that you're recognizing that you might be selling to more than one person, even though it's considered one-to-one selling. All right. So, Adrian, sorry if you guys are having some issues. Yeah, it was frozen for me and I had to go out and come back in. Okay. Yeah, sorry about that, Mary. Hopefully you get that sorted out on your end. All right. So for those of you, again, who are just joining in, looks like I got a whole pile of people coming in from YouTube. Let me know where you're from and where you're at and what interest you have in selling. I'd like to know what, are you selling for yourself? Are you selling as a business owner? Are you selling in, you're just trying to learn more about selling? That's either way. It's great. Now, one other thing I want to make sure that you understand. Thank you, Adrian. Got it fixed. Excellent. Perfect. I'm glad you're all in here. Got in late from Northern Ireland. Pamela, we have been waiting for you. No, I'm just kidding. That's okay. I'm glad you, it's all right that you got in late. It is late there. It's probably what, 8:15, 9:15, depending where you're at. It's late there. It's dinner time. So hopefully you're not staying up too late. Got from people from El Paso, Texas. Hello, Jason. And Adrian is from Northern Ireland. Okay. So Pamela and Adrian, looks like you guys are both in Northern Ireland. All right. Very good. 8:16 p.m. That's what I reckoned. All right. Very good. Well, it's good to have you here, Pamela. So one other quick thing I just want you to think about is selling is a little bit different too than lead generation. And I will mention this here in a little bit when I go through the agenda, when I start talking about the 4 core functions of business, but lead generation and sales are not the same things. Sometimes selling people who are involved in sales also have to develop their own leads. Again, I'm not going to be talking about that specifically because I'm going to assume that you've gotten the lead. I'm going to assume that you've got that person already in front of you. And if you don't have that person in front of you, that's a whole other topic. That's a whole other thing. And generally, I'm just going to give you this one little piece of advice right now. If that is where you're struggling, that's not really what we're going to be talking about today, but I do want to give you a little bit of value here, is that you do need to be spending time in volume. Volume fixes a lot of things when it comes to lead generation, and it's probably just really about having a lot of conversations with people who are your ideal client avatar. We're going to get to that here in just a second. All right, so let's get to the meat and potatoes, right? Now, one thing I want to make sure that you understand is when you're selling, what we're not aiming for are satisfied customers, right? We're not even aiming for happy customers, okay? What we're aiming for are raving fanatics about your business. Because I want you to think about this when you're selling and you're in the selling environment and you're just seeking a satisfied customer. I want you to think about this. Think about the last time that you and your significant other maybe went out and you went to a restaurant and you sat down at the restaurant and you were seated in an appropriate amount of time, and the waiter or waitress came and handed you the menus and was pleasant and brought some waters and some drinks to the table, took the order, and was an acceptable amount of time for the food to come. And they were, checking on you every now and again, and you ate your food and the food was satisfying, and you paid the bill and the bill was reasonable, and you left and you were satisfied. I might even dare say that you were probably happy. How many people are you going to tell about that satisfactory, quote unquote, happy experience? Are you going to tell many people? Probably not. This is why satisfied customers are the base standard. That's the default setting. That doesn't tell me anything when you're aiming for a satisfied customer. I want you to be aiming for raving fanatics about what it is that you do. And when people start talking about you in that raving fanatic type voice, like, oh my gosh, you have got to go and check out this restaurant. Really? Why? Because they did like so much. Like as soon as they came in, they did this, they did that, they did this, and then to bring it around, then they brought this out. And you're like, what? Right? I mean, so what I'm saying is, how can you aim for raving fanatics about your business, not just satisfied customers? That's because, again, that's the default setting. Does that make sense? Let me know that makes sense in the comments, because if you're just aiming for satisfied customers, if you're aiming for happy customers, I'm telling you, you're aiming at the wrong goal. You're aiming at the wrong standard. You're aiming at the wrong target. You need to be aiming for raving fanatics. Thank you, Mary. This is what I'm saying. Like, this is really critical. So just again, type in there. Thank you, John. So type in there. Yes, raving fanatics is what you're looking for. That's exactly right. So let's see here. Gasson, in my own company, always thinking to be best choice, a selling client because they want actually fear. This makes, sorry, I'm trying to decipher this. I know you might be typing on your phone. In my own company, I was always thinking it would be best choice a selling client because they want to actually fear this making sometimes unhappy. Look, the thing, I think I know what you're trying to say here. Again, sometimes I would rather have someone, thank you for putting that up there, Gasson. Yes, raving fans is my goal. Raving fanatics. Absolutely, Pamela. Adrian, excellent. Yes, this is what I'm talking about, is you're aiming for that raving fanatics, because your job is to create trust with the prospect, and they will trust you when you demonstrate high levels of competence, when you demonstrate high levels of character, when you know what you're talking about and you show the type of core values that are in alignment with their core values. Okay, again, we'll bring this up here in just a little bit. But again, your whole job is to create trust with the prospect. So how do you do that? Do you do that just by being satisfactory? Do you do that just by being nice? No, of course you have to do what they're expected, but you also have to. So again, you can't go. It's like if you were trying to grow the extra mile, you first have to go the mile, right? You have to meet the minimum expectations, but then that's when you knock their socks off with superior service or salesmanship. Okay. All right. So one of the things, I love this story, and I just want to make a couple of points here. I know we're kind of getting off to a slow start here, but it's saying, What is that? Slove, not sell. Not sure what you mean by there, Mary. Um, but so oh hey there, Malia. Good to see you. Let me know where you're from and what line of work that you're in. We're talking about selling one to one here. So this is an interesting story. This is an American football story, and back in the mid part of the '60s. Solve. I think that's what you meant. Solve, not sell. That's right. So, and this is exactly what we're talking about, Mary, is solutions based selling. Now, it's a little bit different than from consultative type selling, although it is similar. But at some point, you have to stop the consultation, right? And again, we'll bring that up here at the end here. But let's talk about this American football legend that we talked about that I brought up before. This guy named Vince Lombardi. And in the 60s, the guy was an absolute legend. And he's still a legend today. He was a coach for the Green Bay Packers. And it was interesting because they had lost the championship game going in from 1960 to 1961. And they were just messing up. They were messing up on the fundamentals. And it was interesting because Vince Lombardi walks in, and he walks into training camp on, the 1961 season. And you got to keep in mind, Vince Lombardi at this point, he's been a coach for a while, but he stands in front of these men who have played football for most of their lives. I'm not saying like most of their adult lives. I'm saying that most of their lives these men had played, and these are hard men. Like, these are men who are in their 20s, 30s, some of them are in their 40s, and these are Green Bay Packers of the 1960s. These were hard men. And he stood up in front of them, didn't give them a death rattling speech. He just simply held a football in his hand, extended it, and said, "Gentlemen, this is a football." And he put it down, and he went about the entire basic training roster. Just, this is how you block. This is how you tackle. This is how you tie your shoes. This is how you put on your pads. And he literally, step by step by step, with these men who've literally played football most of their lives. Now, that takes some guts, because these men, some of them were Pro Bowlers. They played football for so long, and even one of the Pro Bowlers was said to say, "Hey, coach, can you slow down a little bit?" And guess what Vince Lombardi did? He smirked, and he went right back to work. He went right back to the basics. Now, here's the interesting thing. The Green Bay Packers never had a losing season while Vince Lombardi was a coach. And that is saying something. They won the championship game. They didn't always call it the Super Bowl, but they won the championship game in 1961, 62, 65, 66, and 67. 3 of those years were back-to-back, okay? So you got to keep in mind, in 7 out of 5 years they won. And they won the Super Bowl, right? So you have to understand, and what he did, every year, he readdressed the basics. So what I'm going to be talking about here in a little bit is we are going to be talking about some basic stuff. And I'm just going to let you know that you might be getting a little bored with it, but I'm just going to tell you, boredom comes from repetition. But I have no idea in the world how you achieve mastery without it. So some of this might seem a little basic, but you have to ask yourself, are you doing it? And when you're ready to proceed, you must align. You have to recognize that why most people hate selling, I'm using air quotes here, and they feel like they have to convince someone to do something that they don't want to do because you're being salesy, right? Or you hate asking people for money, or you feel like you're bothering people, right? It's like, oh, I've already followed up with them once. I don't know that I want to follow up with them again. Okay, we're going to be addressing all of this stuff here in the next probably 45 minutes. So probably go a little over the top of the hour, but I'm going to try to put the fries in the bag by about 15:15. All right, so let's get through this. So here's the agenda. We're going to talk about the Viper framework, which is, we're not going to go through the full Viper framework. It's just going to be, I guess this is especially important to you if you're a business owner, and that is what I wrote about in the Time Wealthy Advantage. I'll come back to that here in a second. We're talking about the 4 core functions of business, which are true for every single business. It has to be true. And these 4 functions have to intermingle, and they have to play nice with each other. We're going to talk about the discovery call, which is the call that you're going to set up in advance of the one-to-one selling call. If you don't set this up, I'm telling you, you're setting yourself up for failure, because the discovery call is absolutely a critical component to the selling process. And then from there, you're going to have the sales conversation, which is actually the sales call. And then we're going to be talking about success strategies beyond there. So what we're talking about specifically is a strategic approach to managing your life, your business, and specifically your sales process. Strategic means, by definition, top down. Okay, so for those of you who are out there still listening, type top down. Type top down. Top dash down. The reason why I want you to type top dash down, A, is because I know that you're listening, and B, so that you understand that strategic means top down. We're not going to get into the super granular things on how overcoming objections and this and that. Very good. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, John. Excellent. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you. And this is so important, because when you're doing this strategic approach, that means you're going to be covering everything. And if you do this right, you're not going to have to worry about overcoming objections and when they say this and when they say that. You don't have to worry about all of that stuff. That is so basic sales 101 that if you have to overcome objections, you've already lost them. That is such a bush league sort of thing to overcome objections. That tells me you didn't do something right on the front end. Okay. And you're going to see why this is coming up. All right. So, all right. So for those of you, again, you might be able to type, but just keep in mind, this top-down approach is really, really important. So everything I'm going to be talking about here in terms of the Viper framework is in this book here called The Time Wealthy Advantage. I'm not here to promote the book. For those of you who want to buy the book, you can go to, if you're in the US, you can go to strategicboardroom.com and you can buy it right in the front. Just click on it. There's a couple of offers in there. You can buy it straight from there. And there's a couple of other offers, and I can sign it and send it to you. If you're outside the US, I know we've got a few friends in Northern Ireland. If you would like to, if you'd like to order it from Amazon, that's probably going to be your best bet. I won't be able to sign it, but that's probably going to be your best bet to get the books that way. Amazon just has a much better fulfillment piece. Thank you, Adrian. Top down, exactly, and that is what we're doing. We're taking this top down approach, and that is what the Viper framework does, that I talked about in the Time Wealthy Advantage. Okay, so let's talk about the Viper method. The Viper method is a framework which is an acronym for vision, infrastructure, process, execution, and reporting. Vision is specifically where it is you want to go. And vision has two components. Vision has a personal vision component, and it has a business vision component. Personal vision is basically, where do you want to go, right? Where is it that you want your life to go? Adrian, where do you want your life to go? Mary, where do you want your life to go? John, what do you want your life to look like if it wasn't defined by income generation? Pamela, if your job description wasn't also a life description. Think about it. When you're in a backyard setting with a group of friends and you haven't caught up in a while, like, oh, what is it you do? And all of a sudden, now you have to give this job description as a life description. And I'm not suggesting that that's wrong. I'm just saying, what would you want your life to look like if it wasn't defined by income generation? Okay, so think about this. Now, let's say that you're going to put together this business vision, and now it's like, okay, cool, that's where you want to go. The business vision is reverse engineered to say, cool, then how are we going to get there? And the danger, like if you never stop and think about your personal vision and you only have ever considered your career vision or your business vision, well, the danger in that is that you've created a business vision before creating a personal vision. And the danger in that is you end up creating a life that exists to serve the business. Let me say that again. The danger in creating a business vision before creating a personal vision is that you end up creating a life that exists to serve the business. And I'm just telling you, that sucks. It's an empty well that just never gets filled in. So if you're going to take the time to really get clear, I want you to think, like, just what are some things you look forward to in your life that is important to you and your personal vision? If you're married or you've got children, what do you want? What is your vision for your relationship in your marriage? What's your vision for your relationship with your children or your parents or your siblings or your friends, right? Maybe it's your faith. What's your relationship? What is the relationship you want to look like with your fitness, your wellness, your relationship with food? Okay. Think about all of those things And that's where you start to craft that personal vision first, and then you're going to have that business vision reverse engineered to deliver that for you. So here's the thing, the interesting thing about this is that when you're heading into the sales conversation, the biggest thing that you can do in advance is research. You have got to know as much as you possibly can about the people that you're selling to. You've got to know as much as possible as you can about your product and service. And you also have to know as much as possible about their level of pain. And pain is what's really going to drive and motivate people. So if you're thinking about this, I really need you to think about, like, pain is what's going to motivate people far faster than pleasure. Pain motivates people far faster than pleasure. So think about it. Let's say that, in my mug here, I had a candle burning. Okay. And let's say, inside inside there is a candle burning, and I put my hand over that. Okay. Now, after a minute, it's going to start to smell if I don't pull my hand back, right? But my point is, if I put my hand over that candle and it starts to burn, am I just going to go like, oh, let me just move my hand away? No, I'm going to jerk my hand away after it starts to burn. Make sense? It's because we're much more motivated to move out of pain than we are towards pleasure. So it's really important that you recognize what their potential pains are. Because when you understand their pain, now you can start to bring things up and go, oh, okay, yeah, let me ask you something. Is this something that's a pain point for you? And they're like, oh my gosh, yes. Okay. And you're like, yeah, I kind of thought so. Or, hey, is this something that's a pain point for you? They're like, no, not really. I'm like, yeah, I didn't think so. Okay. Either way, you're good. You just got to know how to ask the right questions and don't paint yourself into a corner. You go, that's a pain point for you. And they're like, no, it's not really at all. And you're like, okay, all right, yeah, got that wrong. All right, well, I just maybe lost some credibility with you, right? So again, this is important. All right, so Gasson, very alike that, because I wanted to share again, business vision goes to best goal between customer and selling. Yes, I think so. I think what you're trying to say, and if I'm getting this right, I know you're probably typing on your phone again, is, again, having that business vision really, really clear is important, but don't do that at the expense of not having a clear personal vision. Because again, I'm just telling you, that's an empty well that just never gets filled in. Let's talk about the business vision, the 3 C's of business vision. The 3 C's of business vision are defined business vision is defined by these 3 C's in this way. And I'm just telling you now, anytime I have been invited to come in as a strategist, or work with a company as a strategist, or work with a company as their fractional CSO, their fractional chief strategic officer, and working with their C-suite of people, anytime I have been brought in, I'm telling you, there is a void in one of these 3 C's. Sometimes all of them, but generally almost every single case, it's more than one, but in any case, it's at least one. In every single case, it's at least one. And those 3 C's are this: core purpose, core values, and client avatar. Core purpose, core values, and client avatar. And you might be thinking, what does this have to do with selling? It has everything to do with selling, and it's going to make sense here in just a second. Your core purpose is, what business are you specifically in, and what problems do you specifically solve? And it's really important that you be very specific. If you're not very specific in this question right here, like I'm just telling you, if you're not clear in this, you are going to struggle in your sales. You know why? Because your person sitting from across the table is like, what are they really committed to? What do they actually do? And it might be clear in your mind, but it might not be clear in theirs. And if your core purpose, I'll give you an example. Now, this is where people say, yeah, but I do a lot of different things. Okay. Do you have a place where you bring your car to get work done? Yeah, probably. Do they do only one thing? Do they only replace your wiper blades and that's it? They're only specialists in replacing wiper blades. No, of course not. They probably can replace wiper blades. They could probably replace your blinker bulbs. They could probably change your oil. They probably could change your tires and probably put on a new muffler, probably do a tune-up, probably replace belts. You getting the picture? They have lots of different products and services that they can offer, and they do lots of different things across lots of different makes and models of vehicles. Does this make sense? But the core purpose is to work specifically and solely on passenger vehicles. Do they work on heavy trucks? Probably not. Do they work on recreational vehicles? Probably not. Do they work on helicopters? Probably not. Do they work on horses? I hope not. Okay. This is what I'm saying. Like, the core purpose is when they're specifically dialed into that particular avatar. They are working and they do these certain things. Now, do they do transmission repair? They probably don't, because that's starting to get a little bit too specialized. But some of them do only transmissions. Some of them will do only tires and mufflers. Okay, or brakes, because those are faster in and out sort of things. Okay, but this is where you have to be really specific about the core purpose of your business. And I'm telling you, if for those of you who are if you're an entrepreneur, and many of you have different ideas for different businesses, every time you get out of the shower, ask me how I know. You're like, oh my gosh, I got a new business idea. Yeah, I understand that. Well, that's why you have to be really cautious and really careful about your core purpose and make sure that that is very dialed in and very well defined. Let's talk about core values. Your core values are what matters to you about this business, and how would the world be worse off if you were no longer in business? Think about this. Your core values are, especially the core values of your business, are an extension of your core values. That's because your business is just an extension of you. So again, this is where you start to think. Now, let me know, and let me know in the comments. Have any of you ever lost a friend because they were heading down a path that you weren't willing to follow? Has anybody ever, maybe it was a loved one. Maybe it was a significant other. Maybe it was someone you were in a relationship with. And you're like, no, brother, no, girl. I'm like, I am not going down that path with you. You're heading down a path I cannot follow. And because it was a violation of a core value for you, you were willing to take action. Yeah, that sucks, right, Mary? Yeah. And this is the sort of thing where you have to recognize where, okay, so now I've got these core values, and generally they're easier to identify when there's like a violation of a core value. But sometimes we learn from our excesses on the good side, right? If there was a period in our life or a time in our life we would love to replicate if we could. That's what I'm saying. Like, these are the sorts of things that identify our core values. So think about this. It's important to define the core values. Well, why? Because you want to attract people who are in alignment with your core values. If you're in a selling situation and all of a sudden someone starts to reveal themselves that they are not in alignment with your core values, it's just like, hey, you know what? I just don't think this is a good fit. That's okay. Let them go. Let them go be a better customer for someone else. And that is, I'm telling you, have you ever worked for a boss that doesn't align with your core values? Have you ever worked with a customer that doesn't align with your core values? Oh my gosh, it's the worst. Just go away already. So this is why I'm saying, when you have someone who's in alignment with your core values, they are going to bring others that are like that. But this is why you have to define them, because the core values define your company culture, and your company culture and your company brand are inextricably linked. Your company culture is what is experienced by the people who work in your organization. The company brand is experienced by the people who buy from your organization. Does that make sense? So that's why you really have to take the time to define the core values, because that's what defines the DNA of your company. So we talked about core purpose, we talked about core values. Now let's talk about client avatar. The client avatar is who specifically and ideally do you want to serve? Who is that person? Sometimes it's a group, sometimes it's a couple. But what are their geographics, their demographics, and their psychographics? So when you're talking about geographics, it's about where they are. Their demographics is who they are. Are they married? Are they single? Do they have kids? Do they have no kids? Are they young? Are they old? Are they educated? Are they not educated? Are they rich? Are they poor? Whatever. Think about their demographics, and then think about their psychographics. And psychographics is how they think and how they buy. How they think and how they buy. So when you're thinking of psychographics, in addition to all the other things that I mentioned, you want to think about them in the context of ALIA, A-L-I-A. That is their attitudes, their lifestyles, their interests, and their aspirations and goals. Why would you care about this? Why would you care about understanding their attitudes? Well, what's their attitude on education? What's their attitude on politics? What's their attitude on reading? What's their attitude on religion, right? Whatever, like whatever their attitudes are, it's important that you know that. Because again, would you want to work with someone whose attitude does not align with your core values? Probably not. I will tell you that, like I tend to I tend to attract people who are married. I tend to attract people who have children. I tend to attract people who are Christian, but does it mean I won't work with them if they're not? Any of those things? No, I'm just saying that those are the tens of the types of people because we have similar attitudes. We have similar lifestyles. I'm 53. We've got a 20-year-old. We've got a 17-year-old, both boys, and we've got a 3-year-old daughter, right? And you might be thinking, oh my gosh, right? You did not do the math on that, Mark. No, I did not. When I was 50 years old and going, wow, we're having another baby. Okay. Right. But the thing is, she's an absolute blast. But the thing is, these are people, like I tend to attract people who also have children at home because I understand what that busy lifestyle is like and they want to spend time with their kids, right? Think about their lifestyles of, are they young and jet setting or are they young and kind of homebodies? Are they old and they're grandparents and they want to spend time with their grandkids? Or are they old and all the grandkids are gone, they're off to college and they couldn't care less? Or are they don't have grandkids yet, so they're old and jet setting, right? They're running around the world, whatever. What's their interests? Are they into American football? Are they into European football? Are they into NASCAR? Or are they into Formula One? Know their interests. Are they into reading or art or whatever? So you know how to read them, you know how to reach them based on their interests and their attitudes, their lifestyle, their interests, also in their goals. If you understand their goals specifically, doesn't it make sense that you could sell to them a little bit more effectively if you knew their aspirations, if you knew that they always wanted to go back and finish up their college degree, if you knew that they wanted maybe at some point in their life wanted to have a child or have more children? Wouldn't that be important for you to know? Wouldn't it be important for you to know if they maybe wanted to retire by the age of 55? Wouldn't that be interesting for you to know? Yeah, all of this stuff would be really important for you to know. And all of these things make up the 3 C's of business vision. Like I said, anytime I have seen a hole in someone's organization, it's around one of these 3 things: core purpose, core values, and client avatar. So here's what I want you to do. If you do nothing else, and you think you just hate my face and you can't stand my voice and you can't stand one more second to listen to me, fine. Please take time to write these things down. Because if you're not writing them down, the problem is your mind is going to change over time. I want you to write them down and commit to what these things are. And again, if they need to evolve, that's fine. But keep them written down because they will get better. They will get more honed. If you're just relying on your memory in terms of what these things are, you're going to keep shifting and moving around. And it's like trying to score a goal with a moving goalpost. Okay? So take the time to write these things down and get very clear. All right? So let's look at the next piece of the agenda. We talked about, we talked about the core, the Viper framework. Now we're going to talk about the 4 core functions. The 4 core functions of business are pretty straightforward. They are lead generation, sales, operations, and accounting. And your customer's journey through your business happens in that order. And it's important for you to know that the lead generation piece is similar to, but it's not the exact same thing as selling. Yes, your ad copy or video sales letters or whatever it is that you're doing are attracting people, but that's lead generation. It's not until someone raises their hand and says, hey, Mark, I really am interested in that thing that you said that you're selling. Can we have a conversation around that and see if it's a good fit? Unless and until that's happening, you are not selling. It's all lead gen. So don't confuse the two. Lead generation and sales is really, lead generation is kind of opening the conversation. Sales is where it closes the loop. Okay. So lead generation, what it does is it lets the world know that you're out there through a variety of marketing approaches. It could be networking. It could be direct response type marketing where you're putting stuff out on billboards. You're putting stuff out, which is also considered outbound marketing. Outbound marketing is like interruption marketing, right? It's initiated by the firm, by the company. So it could be commercials on the radio. It could be commercials on television. It could be magazine advertising, right? That's interruption advertising. It's interrupting their day, right? Direct mail is also considered outbound lead generation. Inbound lead generation is more like SEO, like where people are like, hey, I'm really looking for a good bakery near me. They type into the Google, bakeries near me, enter, and then, and it comes up with 50 billion research responses of bakeries near you, right? So you're like, okay, limit it to my town. Okay, so now it's limited to your town. And so now you're down to like 300. Okay, great. That's what SEO does, right? So that's inbound lead generation, where it's initiated by the customer and now they are trying to find you. Okay, so just think about it from that perspective. It's like who initiates. So, but direct response marketing is where people see an ad and they go, hey, if you're interested in this, click here right now. It gets them to do a thing immediately right away. But the point is that lead generation, like I said, whether it's through advertising or networking or affiliate marketing or joint ventures, whatever it is, I want you to think about this. It lets the world know that you're out there through some sort of variety of marketing approaches. And you have to understand that effective selling starts in the lead generation function. Yes, there is a big difference between when they finally cross the line and say, yes, I'm raising my hand. I'm interested in what you're doing. Adrian, I'm interested in what you're doing. John, I'm interested in what you're doing. Malia, I'm interested in what is it you're doing. I want you to show me. I want you to teach me what it is that you've got. So effective selling does start in the lead generation function, because here's why I'm saying this. If you start the sales function and it doesn't look anything like the lead generation that they experienced, that's going to be very wonky for them. It's going to be very bizarre for them. They're going to be like, wait a minute, why are you like, I'll give you an example. Let's say that your lead generation has the colors blue and white, like what's on my screen. And then you're like, cool, I'm going to buy something from Strategic Boardroom. And you click on the button and it brings you from a screen that's blue and white to a screen that's yellow and black. You're gonna be like, am I on the right page? Did I get misdirected somewhere? What am I doing? So I'm just saying that the salesmanship part does start in the lead generation function. It has to be seamless. It cannot be one clunky thing into another clunky thing. But you're also, the reason I'm saying that effective selling starts, sorry, I got myself in my mouth. Effective selling starts in lead generation function because you have to deliver massive amounts of value to your client avatar. Remember, your whole job is to create trust with the client. And the way that you can create trust is through these trust triggers. Now, I'm going to give you a couple of ideas for triggers that help create trust. One of those things is through authority, by demonstrating authority. That could be through credentials. That could be through authorship, right? Like I've written 8 different books. I'm working on my 9th book now, and that gives me authority, right? Now, some people respect that authority and some people don't, but it doesn't matter. Like, I still have legitimate authority in the space because of what I've written and all of the work that I've done around understanding and helping the small business enterprise. What about affinity type marketing? Affinity marketing is something like, let's see here. So Mandia is asking, sorry, I can't really see what you're saying. Hi, I'm from South Africa. I own my own barbershop. Well, welcome, Mandy. I'm sorry, Mandela. Mandela. Interested in asking a few questions. Absolutely. You're welcome to ask whatever questions you'd like, and I can, I'll be happy to answer them for you. So affinity type marketing, think of it like a shared interest, right? Remember back in the Aliyah, right? When we're talking about psychographics, right? So this is where you're starting to think about their attitudes, their lifestyles, their interests, and their aspirations. Well, affinity is those shared goals, or maybe a shared heritage, a shared geography, or a shared interest, right? That's where you have an affinity. Okay. Sometimes you can get an affinity from someone just because you've seen them often in advertising, right? You get an affinity for that individual. Demonstration, like I mentioned, is another way to demonstrate trust, where you are demonstrating competence, where you're demonstrating to them, hey, this is how my product or service works. This is how I can show you how this works. I can show you the studies that I have done, whatever. Okay. That's demonstration. Again, it's another way to trigger trust with your avatar. And again, endorsement is always good because generally an endorsement is by someone who is well known or well respected. You can get trust by demonstrating vulnerability. And sometimes it's just simply like, hey, look, you might say, look, I struggled in my business. I really struggled with XYZ problem until I figured this out. And now I'm going to show you how not to make the same mistake I did. That's also called a damaging admission, And you probably have seen people do that, right? You've seen influencers do that. You might have seen authors do that. Hey, I messed this whole thing up. Let me show you how I actually fix this. And again, another one is association. Association is by correlation or connection. So in other words, if they are connected to your local chamber of commerce or maybe some other association that they have where you have connected them, and because you trust that organization, thereby there's some bleed over, something called the halo effect, where they are also getting the benefits of that affiliation. Okay. So these are the trust triggers. Now, again, because it's really important to get to trust with the salesperson, or I'm sorry, with the individual as quick as possible. Utilize these trust triggers. Just use one. You don't need to use all 7. Generally, just 1 or 2 will do the trick to where they're going to lean in and want to at least listen to you. Now, again, the fastest way to create trust is to demonstrate competence. It's to demonstrate you know what you're talking about. And it's important that you demonstrate competence, especially around these 3 areas, around your core purpose, that you know specifically what you're doing, almost obnoxiously about what you won't do, that you demonstrate core values about how you will conduct yourself in business, and who specifically are you looking to serve. Because if you're trying to say, well, we serve anybody, right? Okay, really? Really? Because I kind of like to feel like you value me a little bit more than just anybody who shows up with a few bucks. Okay? So again, you're not going to be able to deliver on competence that's relevant if you're not clear on your core purpose, your core values, your client avatar. So you have to get clear on these things. You just can't wing it. All right. So again, it's much easier to deliver value to these people, and much easier to sell to them if you are bringing things that they find valuable. I want you to remember this. The market judges you by what you give away for free. The market judges you by your product samples. So you have to make your samples really high value. You can't just show up and give things away that your avatar is not going to find valuable. If they don't find it valuable, they're not going to want to come back. Like again, so let's say Mandla, right? Let's say that you've got some sort of hair lotion or tonic or something that you're going to put in their hair, okay? And you're saying, hey, it really strengthens the roots. It makes your really glossy or whatever. I don't care, whatever the look is, right, that you're going for. Okay, great. I can give you, a splash of it for free. And if you'd like some, the bottle is only an extra $20 or whatever, right? So you can do that. You can do that by give them a good value. And then again, it's like giving them one potato chip and then letting them buy the whole bag. So you have to make the sample high value. If they don't value it highly, they're not going to value it. So it's important that they value it, not you. And this all gets to the crux of what I mentioned earlier, which is about solutions-based selling. It is similar to consultative-based selling in that you are acting to a certain degree like a consultant. But I will say this. I don't necessarily want to be a consultant for them, because that is an empty, like that can be a train with no end. Like they can just keep coming back to you and back to you and back to you and back to you and never buying. So what I don't want to end up, this is if you have a hard time setting boundaries, and I used to, but I don't now. Like if someone says to me, hey, can I get on a call? Look, yeah, let's get on a 15-minute discovery call. If it makes sense to work together, we'll figure that out. But if someone wants to keep abusing that, I will happily cut them off, because I need to be fair to everybody, and I need to be fair to myself first and foremost. But solutions-based selling is saying, hey, look, even if I'm not the solution that you're looking for, let me help you find a solution. And I will tell you, reciprocity works amazingly when I have helped someone, even if it's not through my product or service. they always remember me and they will do their very best to try to repay the favor. So, so let's see here. So Mandela, yeah, I just opened my new shop as I was previously working under someone. So now I'm having challenges bringing new people in. For now, it's mostly old clients of mine. How do I master leads? So this is a good question. This is not a salesmanship problem. This is a lead generation problem. Okay. So I'm going to make a distinction between, and I made the distinction earlier between lead generation and what we're talking about one-to-one selling here. So what I would recommend, I don't think I have it on the schedule yet, but I think I'm going to be, it's going to be next week, that I'm going to be teaching a marketing magic, and marketing magic is all about lead generation. So really the main thing that you're having trouble with is leads. What I would suggest is going back to your current book of clients right now and saying, hey, I've got some capacity. Who do you know that you could be bringing to me? Right. And maybe give them 50% off a next haircut or something like that. If they bring you a lead that you close, that's totally fine to do. I don't like discounting my value, but I will absolutely do it if it makes sense. And I say, look, the reason I can do that is because I have to spend money to market. And if you bring someone to me and I can give you 50% off the haircut, right? Off your next haircut. So if someone comes to me, make sure I know who it is, make sure they mention your name, and I'll happily give you 50% off, right? So that's something that you can do that helps bring back those leads. Now, again, you got to knock the cover off the ball. You got to be on your game for these new clients. But again, that is a really, really good way to fill your book of business with your existing clients, So that's why. And also what I would say is, are you creating raving fans, Mandla? Are you creating raving fans, or are these just people who are just satisfied customers? Because if you're creating raving fans, they should naturally be bringing people to you. Okay, so put that onus back on you. Very good. Good question. So discovery call. So discovery call, this is where you now have a person that is sitting in front of you. They are having conversations with you. They're having coffee with you. And now what you're looking to do is align your lead generation and your sales. So this is where you have to be really, really careful, because the reason, if they are not aligned, let's say for argument's sake that like I said earlier, you've got a blue and white screen and you click on the thing and it brings them to a yellow and black screen, that is misalignment. And this is what happens, is the confused mind will always say no. So all of this effort that you put into your lead generation, and all of a sudden they're sitting in front of you in sales, they're like, dude, I don't know how do we get here all of a sudden? There has to be a natural continuation from people walking in, inquiring about the thing, and the sales people or you knows exactly what they're talking about. And you just pick up the conversation right where it leaves off in their mind. And everything, this is why it's important that you bring them, and the salesperson or you are directing them to the core offer. Now, the core offer, what is the core offer? The core offer is, if you were telling me, if you were trying to sell me right now, would you be able to tell me what your core offer is without any hesitation whatsoever? Right? Like, would you be able to do this? Now, I'm not saying let's go back to the repair shop, the car repair shop here example. I'm not saying that's like, well, yeah, we replace wiper blades. No, it's like, we really service passenger automobiles from top to bottom, with the exception of everything but the drivetrain. Okay, so you don't work on transmissions. Nope, but we will work on anything up to, but including that transmission. Okay, perfect. I understand that. Will you rebuild motors? Sure, we will rebuild motors. It's not our bread and butter, but we will do that. Okay, great, right? So now you have an understanding of what it is that you do, right? Or that you're really clear on your core offering, but you've got to be really clear about this when someone asks you. If you are wandering about this and you cannot say it in 2 breaths, if it takes more than 2 breaths to describe this, you've got to work on it. You really have to work on what it is that you do. Really, what it is that I do in terms of my core offering, I educate small business owners, specifically who are married, have children, and are busy, and they have no end in sight. I can help them make more money, and I do that through education. I know exactly what it is I do, and I know exactly what it is that I'm looking for. because my core offering is so clear. And I know I do it through education, I do it through coaching, I do it through mentoring, I do it through like all sorts of different aspects. And I know exactly what it is I do through a strategic boardroom. It took me a while to get there though. And it still gets refined a little bit along the way. And I've got it written down. It's on a note card right across, right. I had to take it off my keep a nice clean desktop, but it's sitting over here to my left because I review it multiple times throughout the day. I don't want to forget what that is. So here's what I'm going to give you a quick example. All right. So I want you to think about this. And these are 15 reasons why people will buy. Okay. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to take myself off the screen so you can take a screenshot of this, and I'm going to take a sip of water. All right. So here's what I want you to do. There are 15 reasons, probably there's more, but we'll just say there's 15. And the reason why people are going to want to buy is because they want to make money. They want to save money, save time, avoid effort, right? They want to make things easy. They want to escape pain. That could be emotional pain, physical pain, sometimes spiritual pain. They want more comfort in their life. They want better health. Better health could, by the way, that could become by means of less stress. They want to gain praise. They want to feel more love. They want to increase their status with their tribe. People will buy for truth, especially if they have felt lied to in the past. That's a key component to buying for truth. They will buy for growth, especially growth in their knowledge, growth in their faith, right? Growth in their wellness. They'll buy just because something is new. They'll buy for novelty. They will buy for more certainty or more perceived control. And they will buy to be in contribution to others. So here's what I want you to do. Here's your homework. What I want you to do is I want you to write these all down. You put them on 15 different pieces of paper for all I care. You can do it, or just, back to front. I don't care. But here's what I want you to do. I want you to come up with as many reasons how you directly or indirectly help people make money. I want you to come up with as many reasons as possible. Fill up a page if possible of all the ways that you directly or indirectly help people make money. And you're like, well, I don't really help people make money. Yeah, but indirectly, how do you, if you did this, it frees them up to do that, right? Like, it's like, well, I mow people's grass. That's not helping people make money. Really? Because I can make about $500 in the time it would take me to mow my lawn. So you're darn right I'm going to pay someone far less to mow my lawn because I cannot stand spending that time mowing my lawn. Make sense? So what are all the ways that you help people directly or indirectly help people make money? What are all the ways directly and indirectly that you help people save money? What are the ways directly and indirectly that you help people save time, avoid effort, escape pain? You understand the mission? If you do, type in I understand, because this is really important. And this right here, because when you're selling to people, and we're going to get to that here in just a few minutes, but when you're selling to people and you're bringing them up on a discovery call, these are the different things that they're going to want to, like, you're going to be like, oh, okay, I've already thought this through. I know that I can help people save money by doing whatever else it is, right? So John is saying, I understand. I've got Javier saying, I understand. Okay, Mandla, understand the mission. Excellent. You got your marching orders. Adrian, excellent. I understand. Thank you. Very good. Mary is saying, I understand. Excellent. Thank you, guys. Thank you for staying so plugged in. So let's get to the discovery call. The discovery call, Jason saying, I understand. We've got Pamela. I understand. Excellent. Thank you, guys. All right. So now you've got the 15 reasons why people will buy. Now we're going to head into the discovery call. The discovery call is pretty straightforward. It is not a big, long, sucky call. It's pretty quick, actually. 10 to 15 minutes at the most. So what you're going to do is you're going to qualify your prospect with this discovery call. And this is it. So this is where someone calls in and says, hey, I'm interested in whatever it is you have. Now, if you have a lower priced item, or someone's like you have a retail store and someone's coming in, obviously you don't have time for this, right? But you still should qualify them in upfront, which is kind of working as a discovery call. So here's the questions that I'm going to ask. So I'm like, hey, so what gets you calling in today? how can I best help you? What's bringing you into the store? These are the first questions I'm going to ask. So first and foremost, how soon are you looking to address this? Like, is this something you're looking to solve right away? Or is this something you're just kind of shopping around for? This is important for you to know right now, because it's also going to let you know how much time to invest with this person. Because otherwise, they're just going to suck the life out of you with how much ever time you're going to be willing to devote to them. All right. So again, how soon are they looking to address this problem? That's because they say, oh, well, probably within the next couple of months. Okay. All right. That doesn't mean like leave now, you're dead to me. Okay, cool. Now you kind of getting a gauge, or like, I've got to get this solved right away. Okay. Very cool. I have some bandwidth, or, well, let's talk, because I might not be able to help you, but we'll figure that out. The second question, what kind of budget are you working with? Okay. And I will ask this. I wrote it up here. I would never ask the question this way. I just wrote it up here academically so you can understand the nature of the question. I would never say, well, what kind of budget are you working with to solve this problem? I would never ask it that way. You sound like an idiot. So what I would say is, what kind of budget are you working with? Do you have a budget in mind? That's way more natural. That's way more colloquial. You don't want to be like, hello, sir. What kind of budget are you looking to solve this problem? Again, it's so fake. I would sound ridiculous saying that. So I just want you to understand why I wrote the question that way. The third question is, okay, cool. Can I ask you, and this is absolutely critical, especially for a high ticket purchase. Now, what's high ticket? It depends. It's in the eye of the beholder. Some people might view a $200 purchase as high ticket. For me, high ticket is anything that is generally $5,000 and above. In your market, it's just going to be different. So I say, who are all the decision makers? If it's a lower ticket purchase, generally I'm not going to ask the question. You're going to have to kind of figure that out, because I don't know that for your market. And literally, we've got people from El Paso to Ireland, which is humbling, and South Africa, right? So I can't say for certain what all those different markets are. I mean, I'm a smart dude, but not that smart. And I would even be arguing how smart I really am, because I probably don't really think I'm that smart. I'm just saying, I'm just letting you know, you've got to have some discernment there. Okay. So ask, who are all the decision makers? Why do you think I want to know this? Why do you think I want to know this, especially if it's a high ticket item? Because if I know the decision makers now, or if let's say someone's standing in front of you and they're coming in there to buy a car, like, hey, is there anybody else that needs to be involved in this decision? And they're like, nope, it's just me. Okay, cool. And they pop out, well, I really need to talk to my accountant about it. I really need to talk to my wife about it. I'm sorry, I'm confused. I thought you were the one making the decision here, right? So I do hold them accountable to that, because I'm sorry, I don't like being lied to, and I won't lie to them. I don't expect them to lie to me. So I'm just saying, and I will say that. I will say, hey, is there any other person that's involved in this decision? Only because it's just easier if we have one conversation. I understand you're kind of in discovery mode right now or whatever. I will ask that question, and I'll let them know why. I'm just trying to say, like, because if I have this idea and you say it, and it's all of a sudden this telephone game and stuff gets missed in translation. So that's why I do bring that up and make sure that I understand who are all the decision makers and where will they be during the sales call. Number 4 is, have you ever worked with someone in my industry before? This is a critical question. Have you ever worked with someone in my industry before? And the reason why I ask this question is because regardless of the answer, it tees me up for the next set of for the next way that I'm going to be talking to them. Okay, so this will make sense here in a second. So if I say, hey, so I'm a strategist. Have you ever worked with a strategist before? And you say yes. I'm like, cool. How did that go? Right? How was that experience? Oh, it was great. Good. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. Let me tell you how I work. Okay. Or have you ever worked with a strategist before? And they say no. Okay, cool. Well, let me tell you how I work. Make sense? Either way, both detours bring me right back to the same point. Cool. Well, let me tell you how I work. Oh, you've worked with someone before? Cool. Let me tell you how I work. Oh, you haven't worked with a strategist before? Cool. Let me tell you how I work. Either way, it brings you back to that point. Does that make sense? That's really important, because you have to be able to get back to a point where you're talking about what it is that you do. You have to get back to a point rather than otherwise you're going to be wandering around in conversation talking about football games or the weather or some nonsense, and your job is to advance the sale. Yes, you can be friendly. Of course, you can have pleasant conversation along the way, but you start wandering back and forth in the like your job as the sales professional, and that your job as the professional is to advance it towards the ending, either disqualifying them as a buyer or moving it towards the purchase. One or the other. Not talking about pot roast, not sitting in their kitchen for 9 hours and they're wondering like, okay, hey, we gotta go to bed. Are you gonna leave? And there's been salespeople who are like that. They just kind of wear people out through attrition. Okay. Sean put in a late. I understand. Thank you, Sean. All right. So this is where I'm talking about in the discovery call, and I do this in like maybe 10 minutes, 12 minutes, really. The last thing that I will do, and this sounds really bizarre, is, again, keep in mind, people are usually contacting me and saying, hey, I'm interested in whatever. Okay, cool. I walk them through those 4 questions, and I'm saying, hey, listen, I just want to ask you something right now. Would it be okay? I work a lot by referral. Would it be okay if, not right now, but in the future, that I asked you for a referral? And the reason why is because I get a lot of referrals from people who I really work hard for, and it's important that I give you a little bit of time to think about who that is. So in the future, would it be okay if I asked you for maybe someone that you could refer to me? Now, I do that in sorts, and I'm kind of a little wonky with it just because I'm out of context. But really, the way that I would do that is if you were asking it from me, I'd say, hey, look, I'm just letting you know, I work my tail off for people as a strategist, and as a result, I get a lot of people who refer business to me. So here's what I'd like to ask. Not asking you to make a referral right now because you don't know me yet, but I'm going to work my butt off for you. And whether we end up doing business or not, I would like you to think of maybe someone that you could refer business to me in the future. Would that be okay? Notice I didn't ask for the referral because it would be completely out of context. Like they weren't even thinking this, but I'm asking for them to start thinking about it now. Okay. We're going to come back to this. So this is why, again, you want to start thinking about this during the discovery call. So again, let's think about why people hate selling, right? They're feeling they have to convince someone to do something they don't want to do. Keep this in mind, right? You hate asking people for money, or you feel like you're bothering people. Okay. Well, this is it. I'm gonna show you that none of this is relevant. Okay, so let's hang in there. We're almost to the main part where you're actually in the sales conversation. So let's say during that discovery call, cool, we've had the discovery call. All right, great. So there's decision makers available. Yep. Okay. So how about next Thursday at 2:00? Great. I'm leading up to this. I'm following up with them. I'm making sure that they're going to be there. And great. It's now Thursday at 3:00 or whatever. And now I'm in the sales conversation with them. I'm continuing the conversation that started in the marketing approach, and I'm continuing in all these different ways. Now, here's the framework that I'm going to follow this. And this framework is bonding and rapport, the upfront contract. I want to discover their pain. I want to demonstrate competence, and I'm going to do a post-sell. Okay? So let's go through this. This doesn't take super long, but it does follow this 5-step framework, and it's pretty infallible. Like there's just, unless you're just really working with someone who just doesn't want to be sold on anything, then you're not. This isn't about convincing someone of something that they don't want to buy. This is about solving a real problem for them. So let's talk about bonding and rapport. Bonding and rapport is what reestablishes that emotional connection with them early on. So remember, you were probably jiving with them a little bit. You were probably, during that discovery interview, it really was an interview, you're really qualifying them in terms of budget. You're qualifying them in terms of core purpose. You're qualifying them in terms of your core values. Where have you heard those before? Yeah, like a bad damn penny, right? They keep coming back around. You have to make sure that you are qualifying them, because if you're getting it kind of the vibe that these people are not really, they're not vibing with your tribe, okay, look, I don't know that I'm the best fit for you, right? But this is where you will reestablish during this sales function, is where you reestablish that emotional connection with, hey, And I understand you went on vacation or whatever, right? You're hopefully you're reading from some notes. Okay. Now you're also listening. You're listening for something when you're talking with them. Okay. And this is what happens when you're not really, you're just like we were talking about fishing, and we're talking about boating, or we're talking about whatever nonsense. That's fine. It does help, but you have to also listen for something. So, what's been going on in your business? What's been going on in life? Whatever is relation and relative to what's important to them. Doesn't have to be about business. It could be about other things going on in their life but you're listening for their fears. Man, I wish there was more time in the day. Yeah, I get it. Right? Yeah, my kids are growing up and I feel like I'm not around enough for them. Yep, I get it. Yeah, that's a lot. Right? You're listening for their fears. You're listening for their limiting beliefs. You're listening for their pain. This is going to be important here in just a minute. Okay. So when you're reestablishing that emotional connection with them, it's important that you're listening to the things that they're complaining about. They're maybe not be overtly complaining, but it's just things that they have concerns about. All right. So this is the bonding and rapport function. And then there is the upfront contract. Now, the upfront contract it really just lets all the air out of the balloon. It takes any of the stress out of the situation. It takes the stress out of the situation for you, and it takes the stress out of the situation for them. Okay? So the upfront contract, what that does, it lets them know that they can tell you no. All right? So let me give you a nice, very simple way to transition from the small talk that many people don't know how to shut up from. And if I had 3 hands, I would put them all up, because until I learned how to do this, I would just sit there rambling on about nonsense until they finally brought it up. Okay? So again, my job as a professional sales individual is to advance them towards the decision, advancing them either towards disqualification or towards qualification and ultimately purchasing. Okay? This is what I will do to transition into the selling conversation. So I will say something like this. Okay, yeah, we're talking about NASCAR or football okay. Well, I guess I should probably earn my paycheck. You invited me here because you had some questions about insurance, right? Or whatever, like I'm just using that for insurance. Or, well, I guess I should earn my paycheck. You had some questions about doing some strategy work. Is that right? Okay. You see how I did that? I found that break in the conversation. Yep, well, I guess I should probably earn my paycheck. Or something along those lines. Something like, well, I guess we should probably get to the conversation. I mean, you would ask me about, initially you would call me up about asking blah, 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 right? Yep, okay, great. So that's how I transition to the upfront contract. Okay, so I'm transitioning all this conversation over to the upfront contract. So now here's what I'm going to say. I want you to remember in the upfront contract is no, no, yes, yes, biggest fear. No, no, yes, yes, biggest fear. So I want you to listen for where I'm saying the no, no, and the yes, yes, and then the biggest fear. This is important. So, I'm going to use Jason as the example here. Okay. Mary is saying keep the off ramps to a minimum. Yes. Well, listen, if they want to derail and go to the off ramps, just let them give them a little bit of a yarn to run with and say, okay, absolutely. And then bring them back on. They will try to derail you. And sometimes they're just doing it and they don't even realize they're doing it, but they'll put in inane comments or, random questions or, it's just things that aren't, and sometimes they're doing it on purpose because they're afraid to make a buying decision, which is important. Which is important too, because they either don't trust you, they don't trust the product or service, or they don't trust themselves. And not trusting themselves is a big reason why people will avoid selling conversations, because they know they can't say no, because you're a nice guy and they don't want to hurt your feelings, but they also know they can't afford it. Okay. So this is, very good, Mary. Thank you for bringing that up. So the upfront contract, this is what I'm saying. Okay. So let's say, using Jason as an example. So Jason says, all right, so, well, Jason, look, I know you invited me here. I'll be an insurance guy for a second. Jason, I know you invited me here to talk about your life insurance policy. Before we get started though, listen, I just want to take any pressure off of this. If at any time what I have to offer you in terms of our products, if they're just not a good fit, you can absolutely tell me no. I promise. My wife is still going to love me. My kids are still going to try to spend all my money. I'm still going to have dinner tonight. You can totally tell me no. Is that all right? Okay. All right. But keep in mind though, if I don't feel like what we have to offer you is the best fit for you and your family, I'm going to tell you no. But listen, if we think together, you say yes and I say yes, and we can figure out what that looks like on the other side. Does that make sense? And I'm waiting for Jason to say, yeah, and I will say, does that make sense? Yep. Okay, great. My biggest fear is that you're going to look at my quote, and then you're going to look at a quote on the internet, and I'm going to tell you, you're probably going to find a cheaper price. But my fear is that you're not going to get the coverage that you need, that you mentioned you were worried about back when we were first starting to talk, right? Because you were worried about your neighbor dying when he was 38 years old and you're 42, and now you're worried about that. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. So is there anything in particular you're trying to cover today? Is there anything in particular you're trying to accomplish today? You see what I did there? Okay. So I did the no, yes, biggest fear. So what I said was, okay, so I guess I should probably earn my paycheck. Well, you had me here so we could talk about, your insurance. So before we get started, freeze. We are actually started. We've actually started 10 minutes ago when you were doing the bonding and rapport. We've already been going at this, but I want them to know, hey, we're transitioning. But before we get started, you can totally tell me no. I'm going to eat dinner tonight. My kids will still love me. You and I will be good. I just want to make sure it's a good fit for you. And if you don't feel like it is, you can absolutely tell me no. Thank goodness I'm not going to be sold to. That's what they're thinking in their mind. You can also, on the other hand, tell them no. Wait, what? You don't get to tell me no. Listen, did we love hearing no as children? Did we grow an affinity for it as adults? No to both answers. And that's why I'm saying this no, that second no, is absolutely critical. This is a way you're not going to have to overcome objections and do none of that. If you do this stuff well and you've done the discovery call well and you've done this well, you won't have to do any of that nonsense. Because I'm telling you, look, you can totally tell me no, it's totally fine. But just understand that I might tell you no, because if this isn't the best fit for your family, I'm going to tell you no. You don't get to tell me no, right? So this is, yes, absolutely removes all the pressure. That's exactly right. Mandela saying advanced step does disqualification, or rather a qualification of sale, which ultimately leads to a purchase. That's right. That's exactly right, Mandela. You guys are picking this up, right? You guys should be teaching this, right? So then it'd say, but on the other hand, so you can tell me no, I can tell you no. Is that cool? Right. All right. I don't necessarily wait for the yes there, but I do wait for the yes on the other side. All right. So you can tell me no, I can tell you no. Cool. But on the other hand, if you say yes and I say yes, we figure out, that we want to work together. We'll just figure out what that looks like on the other side. Make sense? I want a yes there. And if they don't, even a head nod is better than nothing, but I want them to give me an affirmation, an affirmative of something. That's called a shy yes. That is important because you want them in agreement with you. If they will not do this, if they're just going to sit there like a sphinx, they're probably not, they're like, nope, I don't trust this person. I'm not buying from this person. And there's something there. If they're not going to engage with me in that way, I'm going to stop and go, I'm sorry. I'm feeling like you're not trusting me. Is there something going on? And I will, that's a whole other thing, but I just want to make sure that I am getting that affirmative yes from them. Now, you can tell me no, I can tell you no, right? But if we figure out on the other side, you can say yes, I can say yes. Cool. Does that work for you? Okay, cool. Look, my biggest fear is ... My biggest fear has nothing at all to do with this. Whose biggest fear is it? That's right. It is their biggest fear. So where do you think I got that little gem from? That's right. I got it from either the discovery call or I got it from the bonding and rapport section, right? I got it from when they were talking. Hey, what brings you in today? Well, my neighbor just croaked and he left his family penniless, and I don't want to do that to my family. Okay. So he's afraid. He's driven and motivated by fear. That's a big one, right? So my biggest fear is that you're going to go online, you're going to find something cheaper, and you're not going to get the coverage that you want. Oh, man, yeah, because that's exactly what I was going to do. You know how I knew that? Because I researched them. Because that's how I know what most people do is they're going to get my quote and they're going to use that to go shopping for other people. That's why I don't want to offer a Me Too product as a business coach. Guess what? I'm not a business coach. I'm a strategist. It's a very different thing than a business coach. Most business coaches don't have a lot of business background. I'm not saying that they're bad at what they do. They just ask a lot of questions and they draw out what's already inside that other individual. Right? But as a strategist, I bring lots of little individual pieces of business or information around lead generation, sales, operations, and accounting because I have backgrounds in all of them. So this is why, again, when you're differentiating yourself, this is how you're able to do this. But this is about part of you researching, but you've got to know their biggest fear, and you've also got to know what your competition is doing so you can marry those two things together. Oh, man, that's so good. Right? So their biggest fear. So no, yes, biggest fear. Okay. So is there anything in particular you're trying to accomplish today? Now that is a perfect transition to the next part of this. Is there anything in particular you're trying to accomplish today? Yes. So when you're saying, well, whatever it is they say, well, I'm just looking for the price of green tomatoes, whatever. Cool. Tell me about that. Right? Now you're trying to get to what would you like to accomplish today is the next main question that I'm going to ask. So from there, what I'm looking to do is just uncover their pain. So tell me, and all I'm doing is asking questions. I'm being massively curious and I'm listening. So tell me more about, like you mentioned that you were really worried about your neighbor dropping dead and you're not, like, I know I have my reasons, but why would it be important for you? It's important that I know why these are important to you so I can structure a policy that's really going to be the right thing. Well, I've got 4 kids. I got this. I've got that. Okay, cool. Well, is there anybody else important to you other than your family? You know, I never thought about it. I'm really worried about my church because if I don't give up money, my church, I don't know that they're going to be able to because I make a lot of money. Okay, cool. Tell me more about that. Right? Now, again, when you're doing this, you can use what's called a 3T story format. Is where it's called a title, triggering event, and transformation. The title, triggering event is transformation. It's really straightforward. Is, okay, cool. I was 5 years old and my mom told me not to touch the stove because it would burn my hand. And I touched the stove. It burned my hand. I cried. My mom told me not to do that, but she was really kind about it. She put some burn cream on it, put a Band-Aid on it, and I learned. Title, I was a little boy. Triggering event, I burned my hand. Transformation. My mom was really kind about it, put a Band-Aid on, and I learned a lesson. That's all it is, right? So you can tell that title with, hey, I was growing up and, you know, I know someone who passed away and didn't have life insurance and really left their family in a bad spot too, right? Or whatever. Triggering event, right? They died, didn't have the right insurance, blah, blah, blah. And the transformation was they transformed into something not good. Okay, this all follows the format of problem, agitate, and solve. So again, what's the problem? And you see this in commercials all the time. Oh, do you have dirty clothes that stink, right? And you put them on even after you wash and it still smells like bad body odor? Agitate, agitate, agitate. Well, our solution is to buy our detergent. Make sense? Problem, agitate, rub salt in the wound, and then here's the solution. That's a very common thing that's done in the sales and lead generation. Remember, the whole job is to create trust with the prospect. So as you're uncovering pain, now you say, okay, cool. So now I think I understand the problem. Let me demonstrate my competence. And this is where you're advertising your, what it is that you can do, and you're bringing and delivering competence to them. So again, you're advancing the conversation towards the sale or towards disqualification, just like Mandela said, right? So that's what I'm saying. You're constantly advancing this towards towards a yes or nope, I'm sorry, I don't think you're the best fit, right? Now, when all the questions are answered, okay, And this is it. Are you ready for the big close? Oh my gosh, I got to ask for money. No, no, none of that. None of that. Okay? So, answered the questions. Okay, cool. So we talked about this. We talked about this. Is there any other questions that you have? They look at one another. No, I think that's it. Okay. Well, how do you want to proceed? And you notice what I'm not doing in that moment? My gums are not flapping. I'm not talking to fill in the void because I'm uncomfortable. I'm actually now, I've gotten so comfortable at doing it, it kind of makes them a little uncomfortable, even if they weren't before. So, all I'm going to ask, okay, well, how do you want to proceed? And when I ask that question, it's important that I stop talking. I need to give them time to think. I need to give them time to justify in their head or think about whatever they need to think about or whatever. And that is probably the hardest part for most people, especially if they have felt uncomfortable during the sales process. So I'm just saying that this is such a powerful thing to do. And I'm just telling you, it's really, really powerful. So again, we've gone through the bonding and rapport, and generally what will happen is you've gone through the bonding rapport, upfront contract, uncovering the pain, demonstrated the competence, and you'd said, okay, cool, how do you want to proceed? And they will either say, well, what are the next steps? Or, well, we have to think about it. And I might think at that point in time, like, okay, I respect that. Is there anything in particular you have to think about? Right? Because you asked a lot of questions. And they might say, well, we don't make big ticket decisions this quickly or something like that. Or we're really, like, okay, so from what I understand, and this is where I go back to their earlier information. Okay, I understood you were looking to make a decision right away, right? Okay, cool. So just understand this is a decision you're probably making in the next couple of days then. All right. Yep. Absolutely. Okay, perfect. So when would you like me to follow up? Right. and how would you, so I would set an appointment right then. Like, okay, cool. So you want me to set up a follow up. And if I have done my job, yes, there is of course going to be people that are going to say, well, I just don't make these sort of decisions. And to me, what I will do sometimes is I'll say, well, to me, that sounds like you're not interested. And that's totally fine. Right. That's totally fine. But I just want to know, like, what is it about the product that you don't like? And if I say that, now they're like, no, it's not that. I literally just do need to make it. You're asking for $50,000. I need to make sure, yes, that this makes sense. Okay, fair enough. So I want them to defend that position a little bit. Not like beat them up for half an hour. I just want them to really stand and own that. And then, so then when I do call them, say, tell you what, I'm going to call you back on Thursday at 4:30. And listen, if you make your decision prior to that, you can just send me a message and say, hey, look, we decided we're not going to go with you. Okay, perfect. No problem. I do respect that. When we talk on Thursday, I just want to know, like, if that's going to be a decision that you're going to make. Because otherwise, which I respect. I understand that you may be going with someone else. You're looking for something different. I totally understand that. Right. And a lot of times they're kind of tipping their hand in terms of which direction they're going in at that moment in time. So at that point in time, if they do say yes, and they say, yep, well, what's the next step? I tell them what the next step is. And now I go to post-sell. We are almost done. I know we're going a little long, but we're almost there. So now I'm going to say, okay, cool. Listen, before we sign the contract, before I run your card, before I take your money, let me just ask you one quick question. Why are you okay to move forward right now? Why are you okay to move forward right now? And the reason I'm going to ask this is because, right, you have to recognize that people will buy logically, they'll buy emotionally and justify logically. I'm asking them in that moment to justify logically. Because what's going to happen, as sure as God made little green apples, they're going to go back home and they're going to say, yep, I bought a new whatever. And then the neighbor is going to be like, dude, you totally got ripped off, right? And it's important that they have that justification already baked in the cake for when they start to have buyer's remorse. It's important that you know that now. And I'm telling you, every time I've done this, I've never had an issue. Anytime I have not done this, I can't say I've always had an issue with it, but the issues come up when I don't ask this question. Okay. So I always want to ask this question in advance. So the last piece here is these different success strategies. Look, you have to follow up with them. You have to follow up, follow through, follow them, follow. You have to continue to follow up with them until they just give you a hard no. Like, hard no, don't call me back, I'm going to call the cops, right? Right? But people will respond to something known as the peak end rule. People remember the peak of your experience and they remember the end of the experience. So it's really important that you bring a positive end to the experience, right? One way or the other, okay? So just keep that in mind as you are walking these people through this sales process. So again, especially if they have bought, you need to make sure that they're having a really positive experience. All right. So here's just a couple success strategies and we'll put the fries in the bag for today. You have to bring massive value to these individuals. And I mean, bring value. The market judges you by your samples. They judge you by what you give away for free. So even if they don't buy from you, bring something to them that they might value. It doesn't have to cost you a lot of money. It doesn't have to cost you any money. It just might be something that they may value and are appreciative that you're like, oh, cool. Like, hey, I hear there's a fishing tournament coming up. Are you signed up for it? They're like, oh, wow, I didn't hear about it. Thanks for, yeah, I knew we talked about fishing and you love to fish or whatever. Yeah, I just thought that might be something interesting to you, right? Okay, great. You're bringing them value. You're valuing them as a human being. Make sure that you're aligned your lead generation with your sales. You cannot do this without alignment. Otherwise, you're just going to be wasting a lot of money in lead generation and you're going to be very ineffective in your sales. Bring solutions. Yes, you can consult a little bit. I don't have a problem with you consulting a little because that helps you demonstrate competence. But you have to draw a line in the sand and those boundaries, and you bring some solutions, but let them figure out how to implement the solutions. That is not your job. All right. And then the last part is have a support system. So we'll talk about the support system here in just a second. But hey, what do we still need to do? What did I not cover? What do I not cover? Those of you who might remember, did you get your referral? Oh man, remember I asked for permission to get the referral? Yeah, I'm going to ask for that referral. Hey, remember way back when we started talking back in the discovery call? Yeah, so I know I gave you a little bit of time to think about this. Is there anyone who you might think of that might need my product or service? Right? Get that referral and ask them at the very end of the sale, and ask that during after the post sale. That's generally what I would do. Or you can also ask that at any point after fulfillment or anything along those lines. All right. So in terms of the support system, it's interesting that this guy here, there we go. John's got it. All right. I always ask for the referral, right? Glasson is saying, just like price, contract customer, my partner in Amazon is always publishing any product, course, and contract signed. Yep. Very good. So if you can't see this guy, I'm gonna take myself down off of here, but this is a bank robber, and he is, you can see he's making no attempt to disguise his face. This guy, MacArthur Wheeler, and he had an accomplice named Clifton Earl Johnson. They robbed two banks at gunpoint without making any attempt to disguise themselves, and instead they covered their faces in lemon juice, of all things, fully believing that it would make them invisible to security cameras, right? Because lemon juice is like invisible ink, right? For those of you who remember, used to do that in science class. Well, these two researchers were baffled by this. So these two researchers named Dunning and Kruger, and what they did was they said, okay, well, there's got to be something to be said about false confidence. And this is how false confidence plays a role for many people, including business owners. And most people everybody starts down here at the bottom left, where confidence is very low and competence is very low, right? You don't know much and you're not very confident. But as soon as you start out on something, your confidence is really high. Like, how hard could it be? You don't know very much, but you're very confident that you're going to be successful. But until you get to this peak of Mount Stupid, okay? And then all of a sudden you start realizing you don't know what you don't know. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is way harder than I thought. And everyone comes crashing down into the valley of despair. And unfortunately, this is where a lot of business owners give up, is they realize, oh my gosh, this was a lot harder than I thought. And many times they look for other distractions, other things to do, because they don't know how to climb out of this. But if you continue to work on your competence and you start up that slope of enlightenment, and eventually you're gaining more confidence as you're gaining more competence, and eventually you get to that plateau of sustainability at the top. All right. Well, this is interesting in terms of having a support system, and this is what I offer to you guys. If you are interested, I'm going to go ahead and put my school community up there. If you are interested, right now, as of now, it is free. I am letting you know that is going to change very soon. Probably this week it's going to change. I'm looking at this. I'm not 100% certain. I want to make sure that I get everything aligned up. But if you'd like to click on this link right there that I just put in the description, or you can go to this if you want to type it in yourself, is school.com/strategic boardroom. You can ask me questions in there. You can chat with me in there. And just keep in mind that right now, like I said, it is free, but there will be a cost to it going forward at some point. So if you guys do have any questions, I'll hang out for another hot second. Take a few sips of water, and then if I don't hear anything, you guys can hop off. But make sure go ahead and type your questions in if you've got anything to ask. All right, I'm not seeing any questions. All right, well, thank you guys for sticking around. And I know it always takes a second or two for people's questions to come through. John, it is truly my pleasure. Adrian, thanks so much for sticking around for this. This was a little bit of a long one, but very good. Well, all right, that is everything that I have, everybody. Thanks so very much for sticking around, and I will see you guys